excited to have you here, Rick. I am bursting and bubbling with questions to pick your brain and share with our audience. So welcome.
Thank you, Monique. It is a pleasure to be here with you.
First question I wanted to ask you is, what has brought you to be the person that you are today? Is there a backstory that has propelled you to really dive deep in doing the inner work?
What a beautiful question. And yes is the ultimate answer to that. And really what has really propelled that has been, both my own pain and my own love for humanity. It's this twofold piece. There was pain in my life, really, and I was first unconsciously trying to solve that in ways that were firstly maladaptive, where that was me doing things that really weren't that healthy for me. And then things became more pro-adaptive, meaning, I might have been working out and go to the gym and working a lot. There were some better strategies that I found. And then from diving into the work through personal development and healing and working with therapists and plant medicine and breath work and all these amazing tools that we have access to today, I was able to really not just adapt, but really find real healing in my own body and my own life that completely transformed my nervous system, my perception of the world, and my relationships. And because that had happened and I had that experience, I really wanted to share that with others. It's like when you find anything, right? It doesn't matter what it is. It can be, you might find that you really have this real passion for music and you notice how it lights people up. Some people find a passion for comedy. For whatever reason, they just make people laugh and that brings them great joy. And for me, it was this work of healing and transformation that was so profound in my life that I just naturally felt like I wanted to share that with other people. And it's been a real passion of mine. I love this work, and which is also why I'm here with you today, because I know that you're doing much of that work with your app. And I know you're also an avid fan and, growth junkie in this space too. So it's a pleasure to be here. It's honestly, it's an honor to get to share and do the work that, we get to do, even if you're listening to this podcast, the fact that we get to be here doing this work at this time with the access to information that we have is really, really incredible. If we look at our ancestors or even our grandparents or our parents, they didn't have access to this. And I think we're in a really beautiful time with a unique opportunity where we can both learn and, be leaders in our own lives and heal and grow ourselves, and then also share that with others.
Yeah, some really beautiful gems that you said then, and really thought-provoking. It is a blessing to be able to have these platforms and share the information to quite a big range of people. You kind of share the information that sort of sews things all together and delivers it in a way that really, really makes sense. And one of those things I love about what you share on your IG page, you focus a lot, or you share a lot of wisdom about the nervous system and how important that is. One thing I loved, and which I read, I think it was last week, was how your nervous system really affects your inner being and how it really affects the world that you live in, but also how it affects our relationships. Now, I would love for you to share to our audience about that and how important it is, I guess, to get in touch with that, to connect with that, and as to why it is like that.
Beautiful. And the nervous system is such a passion of mine because it is this really unifying connector. So on my journey, I'm always looking for what's the root. And I'm always learning from multiple sources, whether that be spiritual, scientific, psychological, and also personal. And I really love connecting dots. It's one of my passions, is to be able to connect dots between different things and seeing it from different angles so I can really gain a broader, wider perspective. And so in that pursuit, I really found that at the root of everything, firstly, is that we are human beings having an emotional experience. So our experience is felt. We're having a felt human experience. Now, when we ask a question deeper than that, it's like, well, what is affecting our feelings and our thoughts? And at the root of that really is our nervous system. As simple as it seems, That's the truth. It's like we are experiencing the body, our experience through our physiology. Now, our physiology is very old. We have this, you know, if we looked into our genetics, we would literally see every animal and every creature would be in there at some point. So this has been going on for hundreds of thousands of years. This nervous system has been evolving, and then it's evolved through all of your ancestors, your parents, your grandparents, their grandparents. It's been going on forever and ever and ever and ever. Until we arrive here in these bodies. And I believe our souls incarnate in these bodies, in these suits. And as we go through life from a very practical standpoint, our nervous system begins to learn through experience. It's adapting to the current moment experience, but it's also keeping the information from previous generations so that it knows how to live in the environment that it's born in. So when we can start working on our nervous system, that's really where real profound healing starts to happen. And, you know, we used to just believe, so polyvagal theory, for anyone who really wants to dive into the nervous system, polyvagal theory was founded and created by Dr. Stephen Porges. So you can go check out his work. I really recommend it. Deb Dana is one of his business partners, and she wrote an amazing book. There's many books on the nervous system, but if I was to recommend one, it would be one called Anchored. I recommend it because it's the easiest to read. So I just want to credit Deb Dana and Stephen Porges for a lot of the things I'm sharing. But essentially, there are three parts of the nervous system. We used to just think there were two. We used to think there was fight, flight, and freeze. You know, we've all heard of this, parasympathetic and sympathetic. Now, what Stephen Porges discovered was that there was this third piece of the nervous system, which is called ventral vagal. In other words, it's essentially connection. So we're not only wired to fight and survive, we're also wired to connect. The reason why the human species is what it is, not because we are the strongest or the fastest, but because we are the most well connected. We work incredibly well as groups. That's what makes us the apex predator. We're really the apex connector. And a lot of the trauma that we experience, that we often carry, comes from our environment. So think of all of the wars that your grandparents have been through. Think of all of the atrocities that humanity's been through. Think of all the atrocities maybe women have been through and men have been through. There's a lot. And that's carried through the gene pool, just like certain maybe genetic disorders, quote unquote, are often carried through the gene pool. We're carrying information through. So we come into this world with a nervous system prepped for both survival and also connection. So when we come into this world, based upon what you're experiencing with your parents, if you're experiencing chronic disconnection or disconnection, maybe they're working a lot, or you go to school and you're bullied and you're experiencing disconnection, your nervous system is learning and acclimating to all of these experiences. So essentially, you can grow into an adult who is maybe avoiding certain relationships or doesn't feel great speaking or doesn't feel great communicating and expressing needs, most likely because there was experiences that validated that to make that make sense. You know, every client that I've ever spoke to and I hear their story, every human being that I've ever spoken to and I've heard their story, as soon as I understand it, it makes complete sense. There's never one person, no matter what their behavior is on the surface, when you get down to the root of it, it makes sense. Something happened. There was an adaptation. Something happened in childhood. And all of this is happening in the nervous system, essentially. So when we can do our healing work on the nervous system, we begin to affect other areas. And just before the show started, we were talking, when you actually are doing healing in other areas, like there's a direct correlation, for example, you know, in our space, you know, both the nervous system and attachment styles are, you know, hot topics at this time. And they're only going to become more hot topics because there's so much there. There's so much within these two fields. There's a lot of information within them, and they're really beneficial to learn and heal through these modalities. So I think they're only going to become more popular. But there's a direct correlation between the two. So when you are in a state of connection in your nervous system, you're also in a space of secure attachment because you feel safe. So as you heal your nervous system, you also heal your attachment style. Wow. And as you heal your attachment style, you also heal your nervous system because the two are interconnected.
Mm-hmm. Wow. My mind is literally, I've got about 100 questions. I'm sure if we were live, our audience would have so many questions as well, because it's just such a potent bit of information. So, for example, say if someone was brought up in an environment where their parents were not available, they didn't get the attention and the love that they needed. So would you say that person would be likely to exhibit avoidant feelings or avoidant nature because they aren't familiar with having that connection and that time and that energy? Do they carry that on in their adulthood because that is familiar to them, and that if something that is familiar to them perhaps makes them feel more safe and doesn't rock their nervous system?
Well, what I think you're trying to point at is, are the patterns that we're experiencing during childhood, whether that's if you have experienced, say, chronic disconnection, but that becomes normalized, then how does that affect our attachment as we grow up? Is that the question?
Yes, and how does that affect our attachment? And do we sort of stick with what makes our nervous system feel safe? So perhaps that child didn't really get love and attention and connection. So perhaps in adulthood, that sort of spills over into adulthood, where someone getting too close or someone getting, makes their nervous system feel unsafe.
Yes. But each individual will respond differently based on their experience. So some people, if their parent was distant, they will naturally try to go closer. But some people who experience that do the opposite. So everyone's adaptation is different. And then there's different ways that we try and have our needs met for loving connection. So some people might find that when they perform really well at school, then they are loved and they got connection. Therefore, they learn that pattern that, okay, well, if I perform really well, then I receive love. And then often those people become high achievers and high performers. So, there's a slight advantage to that in some sense, but what happens is, what many people experience, myself included, was that never really gives you what you want. And I'll speak from my own experience. That never really gave me what I wanted, because what I actually wanted was love and connection. Whereas I went after, the things that I thought would bring me love and connection, but actually what they brought me was financial security and, significance, meaning that I would be seen by my peers, or I would, and there's nothing wrong with these things. There's nothing wrong with financial safety. There's nothing wrong with, significance, and having, ourselves seen in the world. However, if you're trying to get those things to make you feel what you want the most, which is often for most people love and connection, then those things will never be fulfilling, and you'll need a bigger car, a bigger house, a bigger jet in order to get the thing you're really looking for, when actually the thing that most of us are looking for is love and connection. And when we have love and connection within ourselves, then we can actually have we can be in a space where we can have love and connection with another person, which is why when we do the healing work and we heal our attachment style or our nervous system, and we feel that we are loved when we're with ourselves, by ourselves, and at least that degree, the degree upon which, they say that when your self-love is greater than your need to be loved by others, that's really when you can love someone else. So when your self-love is greater than your need to be loved by others, that's when you can love someone else. And I believe that's true. And I think that's true is because we have to have something to give. If I am depleted in something, whether that be money, food, or love, it's really challenging to give it because there's not really much to give. But when you have it internally, you actually have something to give to another human being. And I think that's a really beautiful space, especially, seeing with Awake and, the dating community that you're building, that from that space, when someone rejects you, it's never going to feel great to be rejected by another human being. We want to be loved, we want to be accepted, but it's not going to destabilize you. It's like, okay, well, I'm just not for them. It's more that perspective. That's the secure attachment. It's like, okay, like I can understand, like, maybe I'm just not their type, versus making it mean something about who we are and what we are, because underneath that is our own fears about who we are and what we are. But when we're actually confident within ourselves and we're secure within ourselves, then, getting these knocks from other people, society, whether that be people not liking us on social media or so on and so forth, when we're at least secure enough within ourselves, we can take those hits. You know, leaders that we're here to be in the world, to share the things that are true for us and be able to stand within that from a place of healthy connection and resilience.
Mm. Well, again, so many pearls of wisdom. Initially, I loved how you touched upon the fact that your environment as a child doesn't really determine what your attachment style is going to be. It really is different for each person. I think that's a really important bit of information that you shared there. And I also loved that you shared that little bit of personal information about yourself as to what made you initially strive to be who you are, but then you sort of looked deeper than that, which is what you do, which is why your wisdom is so deep and great, as to what you really wanted was love and connection. And I can definitely relate to that myself, also being a high achiever, is you know, when I have this, then I'll have love and connection, but really love and connection is initially what I want and what I need, regardless of having this or having that. Do you think most people do in the world with the underlining core reason as to why they do it is for love and connection? Can it be that simple?
Well, we have to look at what it is. Everyone's going to have their own definition of success, but if we look at human needs psychology, whether that be from Maslow or many others, there are some primary human needs that we have, and they're for safety, they're for variety, they're for connection, they're for growth, they're for love and connect. They're for love and connection, they're for growth, and they're for contribution. Every human needs structure will pretty much be something like that. And so we do have these needs that need to be met. However, if you remove love from a human being, they die, they get depressed, they get sick. So it is of immense importance that we have love and connection. And I would honestly argue that the root of why anyone is really doing anything is for one of the two reasons. It's either for psychological safety or it's for physiological safety. The psychological safety being for love and connection, the physiological safety being to protect our bodies. But the truth is, we all pretty much have physiological safety in the West. You know, most people are well-fed and they have a roof over their heads. If you have that, you're amongst the wealthiest people in the world. And from that space, what is life but really relationships and the intimate relationships that we get and who we get to contribute towards. So I would really argue that love and connection is at the root of why we do most things, you know, and I think a healthy psychology and a healthy person is doing things for love and connection, whether that be for their partner, their family, their community, and that's their driver. It's like a drive for love. You know, if we look at the symbol behind your beautiful poster, there's a giant heart with wings flying from it.
Yeah.
And I really do think that's why we're doing things. I think it's for love. And, you know, we could talk about the fear is our fear of dying, you know, but I think we're really here to love. And I think when we can pour our lives into love, into loving ourselves and loving others, I think that's when we really start living.
That's so beautiful.
At least,
so you keep going.
I'll speak to my own life. That's when I really started living.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I love that. That is such a potent message, but I also love it because I find a lot of time in this sort of conscious self-development communities, if you're kind of really wanting sort of love and connection, basically the advice that you've given is you don't love yourself enough. You know, that's sort of, it's kind of that simple. But what if you do love yourself enough and that you want to share that from a place of fullness, which is something you touched upon, but also what you shared with us is that it's wired into our brain. It's not just fight, flight, or freeze. There is that component as to why we want it and desire it so much, and it's okay to have that, and it's not about lack. It's not always about lack or not loving yourself enough. So I think that's a really, really important message. Just a last bit of advice for our audience. For someone that wants to heal their nervous system, what would you advise from your experience and your infinite knowledge? how would they go about doing that in a safe way?
So my knowledge is always growing. It's not quite infinite, but it is a passion of mine, and I really do love it. And what I would suggest to anyone who's delving into that, there are many ways that we can heal our nervous system. You know, if you're going to yoga or breath work, essentially, you're beginning to work on your nervous system. And if you're meditating, you're working on your nervous system. What I found most useful is when I'm working with practitioners where I'm intentionally working on my nervous system. Now, that could be through Polyvagal Theory or through somatic experiencing or through any other somatic practice or somatic coach or any of these types of practices, where essentially we go into a state of dysregulation, which is meaning that a state of shutdown or a state of anxiety. And these aren't states that we frequently want to experience, but then we learn and teach our bodies how to come back into connection from that space. And that's really where a beautiful healing happened for me. And it was a great skill set to learn. I do believe it's a skill set, is that I would find myself in states within my nervous system where I would get stuck. I would either be stuck in anxiety or I would be stuck in kind of a state of shutdown. I didn't even know I was in a state of shutdown for such a long time. And that just means not really rising to the occasion, not really being the fullness of myself. And when we can teach that part of our nervous system how to come into connection, how to activate itself so that we don't stay stuck, or if we're overactivated, how to come back down into our parasympathetic so we can rest and digest, so we can connect. Once your nervous system learns how to move through those pathways, it just has the most incredible ripple to so many different areas of our life. And when we look at healing, the reason that I give any of my clients that skill set before we dive into anything deeper, and we start looking at somatic release work, when we're talking about releasing trauma and releasing pain from the body, which is a more cathartic experience, when we're doing that, we don't want to go anywhere and get stuck. You know, I really want to empower the people that I work with to be able to, go into states of discomfort and come back into connection. Because when we can do that, it's like you have the skill set to be able to heal yourself, essentially, because life's going to throw things at you. People are going to say things to you that might not be that great, and people may leave you. And if it's not directly, they will leave you at some point, because we're all going to die at some point. That's just the truth. So no matter how secure your attachment is, we are going to lose someone. That's the risk of love, is that no matter what, we will lose it. And we have to be able to deal with those things. So how can we learn to be, not just feeling great all the time? And I'm all for that, for feeling joyful and happy and motivated. But what's really beautiful is when we can have the ability to be able to feel more challenging emotions and more challenging states of being, and then come back into connection. And really, that's a skill set that can be learned, and you can learn that through any somatic practitioner. So if you're working with a therapist or a coach, just make sure that they have that skill set. And I would really recommend doing it with someone else. I have tools and resources on my website where you can go and practice this. I do have these things as resources, but honestly, I would really recommend finding someone that can take you through these processes. Now, by no means does that have to be me. In fact, I couldn't take that many clients on. What I'm saying is, find someone that you can do this with, that you really resonate with. And, there's something very beautiful when we are healing and sharing in community as well, because often where we are hurt is in relationship, and also where we are healed is in relationship. And if that person can be your coach and your somatic practitioner, beautiful. And then you can take the work and the healing out to your more intimate relationships and your friendships and these types of things.
Such great advice. And I think it really is important to find someone, because it is amazing what comes up. And often you aren't really aware that it is there. I mean, I went once to a somatic class and we did the most simplest things. It was, just find some sort of uncomfortable feeling and just kind of sit with it. And before I went to the class, I felt fantastic. I was joking, with my friend, really upbeat, singing, playful. I felt really good. I was in a really great space. And then after the class, I felt great. But then that night, I just had like, I was nearly passing out. I had floods of emotions. It was really caught me by surprise. And this went on for about 2 days. And I really didn't link the two together till I went to the class the week after. And literally the same pattern happened again. So I think it is really important to have someone there by your side because, like you explained before, or perhaps you explained when we were talking before this interview, that our nervous system not only carries this experience in this life, but our ancestors' experience, our past life experiences. So it really does hold a lot. So that's really wonderful advice to give the audience. Thank you.
Yeah, no, beautiful. And just to add to that, like that experience that you're sharing is very common. And that's why the skill set of being able to regulate yourself, meaning you can feel discomfort and come back into connection, is such a vital skill set to learn. Just like if you were going to go learn a certain musical instrument or anything else in life, generally there's a basic skill set that you need to learn. And I believe that the skill set of regulation is the most fundamental skill set that we need to learn in order to be able to go do deeper healing. Because if you do have something come up like you experienced, and then there may be a feeling of unsafety of not knowing how to process that. So that's why I always either give to my clients or recommend people that you learn how to regulate yourself. You learn nervous system regulation. You learn how to be in discomfort and come back into connection, so that when you go to your breath work or your somatic practice or life happens to you, you have the ability to be able to come back into connection. Because from that space, that's empowering. It's empowering to be able to then deal with, like, then you don't always need a therapist or a practitioner. Then it becomes a choice once you've got that skill set.
Yeah, that's another really, really potent message that, we learn the skill set and we regulate our nervous system. Then we feel empowered and we can do it ourselves, which makes us more confident in the world, and perhaps more open to love and connection, knowing that we have those tools under our belts.
Exactly. Because then when someone says something to you, when someone in relationship, maybe ability to be able to feel our own feelings of discomfort, meaning the things that we're often afraid of feeling. When we've learned how to be with those and come back into connection with ourselves, we build a type of resiliency. We learn how to deal with negative emotion that we receive from others, because we learn how to deal with the own negative emotion that we receive within ourselves. And what's beautiful about that, the moment that we do that, we also open ourselves up to deeper empathy and compassion for other people. Because I don't know if you've been in a relationship where this has been done to you, or you've experienced this on the other side. And that's someone comes and your partner is maybe angry or upset, and you just kind of want to reject them or push them away, or you don't know how to operate in that situation. You don't know how to be with that. Now, most people don't know how to be with that because they don't know how to be with that within themselves. So once you learn how to be with that in yourself, once we learn how to be that within ourselves, we then are able to be with that with others. So we open ourselves up for deeper intimacy, deeper connection, and also more resiliency, so that when negative things do happen, we know how to deal with it.
Yeah, look, I've probably pictured about 50 scenarios as you were sharing that, and it's so true. I think also if you're sort of quite an extrasensory being, which I know I am, it is really, and I know a lot of the viewers will be as well, it's really important to do that work on the nervous system, because you've already got these extrasensories, you're feeling everything and absorbing everything, but also if you're able to do the work on the nervous system and have that calm place which you can come back to, or you can regulate, you don't take things so personally, you don't feel like you're bombarded, you have that little safe space inside that's there for you. And I can just imagine how that would really just, wow, really change your world and also partnerships, because when you are extrasensory, if your partner walks in the room and they're angry, it's like, it's a lot, but if you've done this work, you're kind of able to take a deep breath, not take it on as your own, not take it personally, and just be like, hey, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? Just really be in a place where you can hold that space.
That's exactly it. And that was my experience too, Monique. Like I wasn't able to hold those emotions for other people because I couldn't hold them within myself.
Mm.
And when I learn how to hold them within myself, then I can hold them for others. And there's also just so much more energy in that as well, because it doesn't, other people's energy now just, I literally say just doesn't really affect me. It's like I can feel where the other person is. And because I've sat with, myself in many different spaces and, felt and experienced many challenging emotions in many states, like things just don't really affect me. There's a type of resiliency that I've been able to build where I can just better deal with life. I can better deal with relationships. I can better deal with anger. I can better deal with despair and anger, like just all of the spectrum that we experience, because I was able to experience that within myself. And we all have the ability to do that. Every one of us has the ability to be able to learn that. I believe it's like a muscle. We go to the gym for the first time. It's challenging. Most people don't want to go to the gym for the first time. And the inner gym or the inner work is much the same. It's uncomfortable at first. It can be uncomfortable, but we can learn the skill set and we can learn the syntax, meaning the order upon which we go into that work in a more elegant and intelligent way. And I would really encourage anyone and everyone to really learn how to regulate your nervous system, really learn how to build nervous system resiliency. Read Deb Dana's book, read her book that I would recommend is called Attached. Read the work of Stephen Porges. Read The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Really get an understanding of this somatic world and build the skill set of how to work in that arena, and you will be more resilient in every other area of your life, in your relationships, in your business, in your communication with your friends. Internally, you'll be fit. You'll be emotionally fit. And I think that's one of the most beautiful skill sets that we can build, because as I said before, I really think life is about relationships and connection and love. And when we can give that gift to ourselves and learn how to be in our own inner world, we can bring that level of fitness and strength and love and care and compassion out to all of those people in our lives.
One thing I absolutely love about you is that the message that you share really comes from the inside out. I find a lot of these, self-help and conscious people, there's a lot of, interesting information, and it is helpful, but it just doesn't quite get to the crux of things, But what you're saying for me, and I know that anyone who'll be listening to this soon when I post it, will just have a real aha moment as to, okay, this is actually what I need to do. So, and yeah, look, you really emanate what you teach. As soon as we jumped on this call, as soon as I saw your face and your energy, my nervous system started to relax just from the energy that you are and that what you've embodied in the work that you've done. I was like, yeah.
And that's the gift right there, Monique. That's the gift right there, because we have this amazing thing called co-regulation, and it's happening through what's called neuroception. So in all moments, at all times, we are unconsciously reading our environment for many different reasons. It's obvious, right? You walk into a bar, into a room, you go on a first date. In that moment, your body, your unconscious takes a snapshot. And what it's often reading is where that other person is in their nervous system. So you could meet the most amazing person, but if they just got they got, cut off in traffic, and maybe, a friend just passed away or shouted at them before they came to the date, and you meet them and they're in a dysregulated state, your first impression is probably going to be this person isn't safe or they're a little unstable, because you're meeting them in a dysregulated state. So when we get into a regulated state, we also then, we're like these energetic containers, right? We are these living, breathing organisms with nervous systems that are reading every single trigger and thing that's in the environment. And when you can be a source of secure safety within yourself, when you're in that state, naturally, other people will feel that unconsciously and be like, this person equals safe, therefore connection can occur. And I think that's the real beauty. So when you do this yourself, you're going to be a gift in every relationship, and with every person that you meet. When you are regulated, you're just opening the door for connection and intimacy and safety in all of the relationships that you get to be in and experience. And I think that's the gift that we get to give.
My mind's exploding, Rick. Saying and what you're delivering is 100% true. I can vouch for it myself. I think this is going to change many, many people's lives, the information that you shared today in this interview, and I'm just so grateful for you, and so grateful for your time, and so grateful for what you're bringing into the world. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure. And I've got to say that I've really been blessed in my life. I've had many great teachers, many great mentors, many great therapists and coaches, and I've really been blessed. And, you know, I think we're all standing on the shoulders of giants with the information and the people that we have access to today. So it's a blessing and an honor that I get to just pay this forward in my own unique creative way. But many of the things that I'm sharing have been, you know, adapted and learned from so many other amazing people. So I receive, and I also must give credit. So thank you, Monique. It has been an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you for all of the work that you're doing in the world with Awake and everything you're sharing, and how you're showing up in the world with your own healing and your own growth and your own passion. So thank you for everything you've done. And thank you to everyone listening as well. You know, if you're listening to this right now and you're clearly walking the path, and, you know, we do get to be these transitional characters. We do get to be those sources of safety. And you know, that is the beauty of the work that we get to do. So thank you as well for listening and showing up and being a part of this change that we're all here to make.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you so much. Beautiful being, beautiful man with an amazing message that's going to change many people's lives. We'll put all your links down next to this interview, and you can find Rick through all the links, and we'll give you a link to his website, because I know you're going to want to read his stuff and find out more about him. Bless you, Rick, in a million ways, and we'll hopefully get in contact with you soon.
Amazing. Thank you, Monique. Take care.
Take care. Bye.